So we've talked a lot about various ships from across science fiction and various ships from across specifically the UNSC Navy from Halo, but there's one ship class that really deserves its time in the limelight, and today we're going to give it that time. Today, let's discuss the Stalwart-Class light frigate from the UNSC Navy. I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below and hit that subscribe button. So, many of us are familiar with the Stalwart-Class frigate from its primary role in Halo 2, the In Amber-clad being the most famous ship in this class. Its role in the UNSC Navy is rather interesting, and it was likely one of the most numerous among the different classes of UNSC frigate, so I figured today we could discuss how it's designed and how it was used within the UNSC Navy. So let's start this the way we start all of these ship videos and just jump right in with the numbers. The Stalwart-Class light frigate was 478 meters long, that's a little over 1,500 feet. It was 152 meters wide and 112 meters tall or deep, depending on which way you want to look at it. Its primary propulsion at sublight speeds were two OKB Karman 56K fusion drives, which are those large engines on the back of the ship. And for slipspace transportation, its slipspace drive was a Starx FTL 290C slipspace drive. To maintain this fairly large vessel, it needed a complement of only 250 sailors to operate the vehicle. That's not including embarked Marines. When fully stocked with its complement, you can add to that 250 sailors 200 Marines along with their vehicles, 12 Warthogs and 8 Scorpion main battle tanks. On top of that, they would also carry 64 orbital drop shock troopers for emergency insertion needs. The ship itself was well armed, with its primary weapon being its MAC cannon, which was a 56 A2D4 Mark II light magnetic accelerator cannon, which once again served as the ship's primary weapon. It would be supplemented by 16 M58 Archer missile pods, 76 M340A4 Streak missile pods, 6 M870 Rampart point defense cannons, and 52 M710 Bulwark point defense cannons. Supporting all of this would be a complement of fighters and support craft, consisting of 6 Pelican dropships for transporting troops and equipment to and from the surface of a planet or orbital body, an unknown number of D-96 TCE Albatross landing craft, and 24 orbital insertion pods for the ODSTs I mentioned earlier. So the primary role of the Stalwart-Class light frigate in the UNSC Navy was escort duty, and while a lot of UNSC frigates of various types would end up falling into the escort role, the Stalwart was initially designed and built for this role, supporting larger vessels like the much more capable and impressive UNSC cruisers. That didn't mean these vessels were incapable of operating on their own, and as we see time and time again, UNSC frigates, including Stalwart-Class vessels, found themselves operating away from UNSC fleets as infiltration vehicles, or going on special missions that involved them, say, following a Covenant supercarrier into slipspace over a major UNSC city. As a result, these vessels had to be basically entirely self-sufficient if the need arose. So these ships would often end up working on their own, separated from UNSC fleets, which is interesting because during the Human Covenant War, UNSC fleet tactics ultimately dictated that UNSC forces would operate in basically massive waves, using large numbers of smaller vessels against Covenant forces, which is one of the places that small ships like the Stalwart-Class frigates would come in handy. The Stalwart-Class in particular was relatively cheap to manufacture, and as a result, as the war dragged on, and it became clear that the most effective strategy against Covenant naval forces were massive volleys of magnetic accelerator rounds, the decision became clear that the UNSC had to just mass manufacture small ships with large MAC guns, and the Stalwart-Class was the perfect option for that. So they became fairly numerous by the end of the conflict. This meant that by the time we were looking at battles like the Battle of Earth or the Battle of Installation 05, the Stalwart-Class frigate played a fairly prominent role because the UNSC had been basically pumping them out through most of the conflict, while at the same time retiring the older, heavier, slower frigates to use their components in smaller, lighter frigates that would be more effective for the strategies that the UNSC found themselves having to employ against the Covenant. But the Stalwart-Class frigates weren't the only UNSC frigates in the UNSC Navy. Far from. There's actually a wide variety of frigates, all based off of the same key design elements that were scattered throughout the UNSC Navy. So if you'd like to learn about one of these other frigates with very similar design, design elements, I'll leave a link up here to my video all about the Sharon-class light frigate, another light frigate utilized by the UNSC at the end of the conflict, the frigates we see in Halo 3. And I'd like you to let me know down in the comments whether you think it makes sense to have so many different kinds of UNSC frigate. After all, these are 3 classes of ships that are all fairly similar and based off of similar platforms. Do you think it makes sense to have basically one key design structure and just modify some of the exterior plating and weapons to fill different roles? Or do you think it's best to build dedicated ships from the ground up for each role within a navy? And if you have anything else to see me cover in Halo or Star Wars or anywhere else in science fiction, you can let me know down below in the comments. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.